Hello and welcome to the latest web seminar by BitGardener. My name is John Kowalski. I'm part of the marketing team here and we'll be hosting, moderating, keeping our speaker at bay today. Our speaker, Ms. Ray Roby, she's our business line manager for automotive. She's going to be reviewing smart chart reporting today. If you have any questions at all, please log them in the Q&A box located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll get to them following the presentation. If there's anything specific you want to see that Ray doesn't walk through, just log it in that Q&A box and we can have her walk through it. She will be doing this live on the software, from the software. So they're just warning you there may be glitches. We've had them in the past, but we're confident we'll get through this smoothly. Also, we are recording this and we'll be sending you the link to the recording during tomorrow's follow-up email. So look for that. Feel free to, look at it, review it on at a different time, share it with colleagues, and as always, if you have questions, please reach out to us. But with that, let me introduce Ray. Here you go, Ray. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. So also, since Stellantis asked us to do this training, John's going to make sure that Jill and Terry can unmute themselves and they can add any information that they want to add.
Jill, I did just unmute you. I don't see Terry on quite yet, but you can control it, Jill, on your end.
Okay, so I'm going to start. So this is data that we have, and I made it very sterilized so no one would know where it came from. But basically, the first thing you always want to do is you want to look at what's called a test report. And the test report can only show one test series, or in this case, one vehicle. And in the test report, you can look at the schematic. There isn't a schematic, so don't worry about that. You can look at the line graph. And this is one thing that we had a discussion about the other day. If you go into graph, you can put these in any order you like. So if I send things over in a different order, so say I do the minus or the 15 delta E and then the 25L, when I say okay here, it's going to put them in that order. So it's important that you set this up how it's going to make the most sense to you. So the way I usually do it is I put all the delta E's straight down. And then you could do the delta L 15 next to the delta E. And this is totally your own preference, but just so you understand how to do this, delta L. And normally for the combined numbers, I put them at the bottom. So this delta ET, I would put at the bottom, and then delta ST, delta SE will do. And then if you hit OK, you can see the data trended over time, or for this vehicle. So it's just important that you understand that you can change these now. In the past versions that you've had out there, you couldn't change them. They were already set up. You can also do travel plots. And these, I think, are really important. I'm going to zoom in. And I think we have a weekly meeting with Stellantis where we talk about this kind of stuff. And what's important here is you want the pattern to look the same. So this is the fender at the 15 all the way through the 110. And then if you look here, you have a big shift on the hood. So these two, if they had to match up to each other, would not look the same on the vehicle, and you might want to make an adjustment there. And this other one that's out is the right door. So you would also want to adjust that. So this just gives you an easy way to see what's going on. If I scroll down, the Delta L looks pretty good. The patterns are very similar. And then when I get to the Delta A, I'm getting some variation. And then the Delta B is the worst one. And this is a, let me make sure I know what color it is before I say it. It is a white solid. So definitely for this white solid, that Delta B is going to be a problem for you because you're going to pick that up pretty much immediately that you're yellower on some locations than other locations. So also right here, there's a new feature where you can switch to the graph, or you can just go to the test series and see what's going on there. So if I go back to the graph, we can also do the scatter plot. And I think everyone has used to the scatter plot, and you can see kind of the same trend that we saw before, that these two surfaces or two components are yellower than the other components, and that's going to show up when you're looking at the vehicle. There's also a feature where you can do intensity emission. And this is basically something that came out because we realized that there were some fluorescent pigments in coatings or some applications that cause the materials to fluoresce. And the biggest thing here is that if these numbers are similar to what you had when you matched the color initially, then I wouldn't worry what these numbers are. We usually say if it's over 8, you probably need to take a look at the weatherability. But if they're the same as what you got on the initial vehicle that went through weathering, then I wouldn't worry about this number. But if it changes, then it's significant. You can also put the temperature that the parts were measured at. And some people think that this is important because if you're measuring like right out of the oven or something like that, and you have any pigments that potentially could change depending on how hot they are, you want to make sure that you know the temperature. You can turn on or off the tolerances if you like. At the top here, you can see the scaling factor, which is generated by the location and color space of that specific color. And then it's going to give you tolerances for L, A, and B, depending on where you are in color space. And if it's a chromatic color, like a red metallic, it's going to generate the tolerancing for C and H and not A and B, because that's how we want to look at that color. So if I look at the scatter plot for this red metallic, you can see the scatter plot looks very different because this is my chroma vector and this is my hue. So for this color, I'm not as chromatic as the standard, but my hue is pretty good on the 15 angle. If I scroll down on the 45, I'm getting more chromatic, but I'm still good for hue. And let's see what the 110 looks like. The 110 looks really good, actually. So these are two different ways that the data can show up. So if I have, like I said before, an achromatic color, you're going to see a circle. And when I have a chromatic color, you're going to see the other graph. So it's just important that you know that there's two different graphs that you can see on the screen. The other thing that's important is when we look at the table, these values, let me go back to, these values here are your actual LAB values. Some of the OEMs use weighted color tolerancing and FCA does not. And the way that you can tell is where it says right here, delta L star, delta A star, and delta B star. You know that these are unweighted. If this said something like delta L P FCA, then you would know that it was a weighted value. But since we're talking about Stellantis right now, they do not use weighted color tolerancing. All right, so the scorecard can be used for multiple colors and multiple vehicles. So if I select everything I have and I go back to table, I can put it in here. So this is the average by checksum, which really doesn't make any sense because I have multiple colors. So if I take from here the color and I put it in front of checksum, now I have my dark silver, my red metallic, and my white solid. And if I'm just giving this information to say management, I can even take the checkstones out and I can just have a summary for all three colors that shows how they looked for a specific amount of time. So if you wanted to do it like by month or by week or by day, it depends. If I want to do it by month, I can take this information and put it down here, and now it's going to show you, I mean, all I have is April data. Not very exciting, but you can understand the point. So if I wanted to do like a whole year, I could do a whole year. And like I said, this is just like a pivot table, so you can move things around, and you can also put like, say, the week, if you wanted to do it that way, in front of the color, and then it tells you how your color ran for the weeks of the data that you have. Okay, so in here you can also do what we talked about before, the line graphs for that color, for that week, or you could do for the whole month. There you go for the month of April, how the color trends. And again, you can go into the graphing and you can adjust how you want to see it and if you want to see it differently. There's another new feature in this new version of Smart Chart where you can save specific test reports. I think this is like something that's really important, and more we've been talking to the OEMs about setting up specific reports that they actually want to see, so that instead of people having to maybe export the data to Excel and run their own reports, they can do them all in Smart Chart. So for this example, if I hit plus, I can make a name. And now whenever I go back to the scorecard, I can pick that test 2 and it's going to show you exactly what I had set up the first time. I think that's pretty user friendly. We never had this capability before in the software, and I think it's pretty cool. Okay. You can also do the travel graphs in here, just like before. This one's pretty, it has a lot of data in it. So maybe we just pick one color. And here you can see that you have some variation, but pretty much the pattern is staying the same, which means when you walk around the vehicle that the travel is going to look the same. And that's the biggest thing with these travel plots of what you can tell is that You know, like when sometimes you're looking at a vehicle and you see like one angle looks a little bit strange. If you look at these travel graphs, it gives you a lot of information about what's going on. If we look at the red metallic, this one also looks pretty good for travel. I mean, you have some variation where you're getting a little bit more travel and a little bit less travel, but at least it looks like it's trending in the same direction. So not so bad. And then if we look at the white, this one was the one that we saw the problem with before. And again, you've got this blue, yellow variation that potentially could be a problem on the vehicle. Another thing that you can do in here, if I go back to table, if you click here, you can pick just the scales that you want. So say it was just a summary report for upper management. I could pick Delta C, Delta ET, and hit OK. And then those are the only two parameters that are shown. You can also export it to Excel. And then in a second, it'll open Excel up. And then you have a report that if you want to send to someone that doesn't have access to Smart Chart, you can do that. One thing I would tell you is I would always go in here and say take out all, because all is just the average of everything that's already showing. And since it's multiple colors, it doesn't really make sense. So if I take that out, then I just have my dark silver for week 14, red metallic for week 14, white solid for week 14, dark silver for week 15, and red metallic for week 15, and then the white solid. So it's a quick summary. I can also put, if I wanted to know, say I had multiple plants, which I don't have in this database. For Stellantis, we're saving the plant in parameter 4, which means when you download the data that you have to add that in by hand. So if I put the plant in, say in front of week, now if I had multiple plants, I could see how my different plants were running for the same colors by week. You can also do a scatter plot in here. It's pretty much the same as before, but it has more data points, obviously, because we're doing it for a whole week. So that's another option, and I can zoom in so you can see how your data is trending. So the scatter plots are really nice to see like kind of where you're running by angle. But again, the travel plots I think are really important to use to make sure that you're traveling the same. We do have a feature called box plot. I'm trying to get this updated because I would like this to be more of like a trend instead of a scorecard. So once we get this updated, I will go through it with you guys in more detail. But right now, I mean, it's pretty much showing you every single location on the vehicle that was measured, and it's giving you the box plot. So if I pull in, it gives you the whiskers if you have something that was not as similar, like this right fender looks like it's been varying a little bit more than, say, these that have less variation. Okay, so now the trend. So the trend, what's the most important thing here is that you need to have this compare on. And then in the newer versions of the software, we have daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. you can sort by parameter 5. Some people put the VIN number in parameter 5, some people don't. So we added this extra feature where you can do parameter 5 by timestamp, or you can do the checksum by timestamp. So if I do parameter 5 by timestamp, I get a lot less data because I'm actually averaging the whole vehicle and not doing the individual checksums. It just depends on how you want to do the trend and what you're trying to look for. So the best thing about this is I can take the left fender and say the right fender, and now I get two different graphs and I can compare how they're running to each other. So this would be if I might have side-to-side variation. You could also use this for harmony, say like a match of the fender to the fascia. And it can give you a really good idea of what's going on. The other thing you can do in here is you can also look at the travel plots. And again, I like this a lot because it really shows you what's going on between two different locations. So obviously here on 4, 6, the fender, the left fender, and the right fender aren't looking the same. So something probably happened there. But then after that, it seems like they pretty much match, which is a good thing. And it also looks like they've improved to the standard over time for the delta E. For the L, the A, and the B, I'm getting some variation, but I did not put in here the paint line. I just put in the plant. So this could be something happening with two different paint lines, and maybe that's what's going on in this example. If I do checkzone by timestamp, now I see every single checkzone that I measured and not an average for any of them. So it's a different way to look at the data. I can also do scatter plots. This is something that we do for harmony. And if we look, we can see down here, the right fender is the yellow and the left fender is the blue. And so there is some variation on the A value and the B value for this. But again, it looks like it's getting better as I move forward in time. Also here, you can add a default name and you can set up a report so that when you go back, you always have the same information that you had in the past. And I can add other parameters like say the plant or the color. And basically you just drag and drop it and it picks up what you need. And if I had parameter 5 as like a timestamp, I could put that after the color. And now it gives me that also. The print function also has some new information. And the configuration for the print function is something we can actually send out to everybody. So if people want to do like printed reports, they can use the same exact report. It takes a little bit when there's a lot of data. I'll give it a second. There it goes. Okay, so if I don't want this title page, I can take this off. And then if I reload it, it's gone.
Well, this is loading. One quick question for me, Ray. Are customers able to put their own logos and do some, customization to this report?
Yes, they can. That's a good question. I'll show you in a sec. So
Okay.
now you just see the data, the line graph, the travel graph, the scatter plot, eventually there, and then the scatter and effect. So if I go into configuration and I go to page footer, I can now type in anything I want under this text. So it wouldn't say Big Gardener, you could have it say Stellantis or whatever you like. Under the page header, you can actually browse and find your own logo and then have that put in there. So you can make this very customized, and it looks, I think, professional and very nice if you're giving it to a customer or if you're sending it to someone in upper management. You can also make like a new report. Oops, I did it twice. That's okay. And I can change this to executive or summary or whatever you like. And then I can put whatever I want just to show to those people in here. And all I have to do is either take things out or I can add them. It just depends what we want to do. So say I don't care about effect, which I do, but I just want the travel plot and the scatter plot. I can do that, and then I can save this. And then close. I missed one thing that I have to go back and show you.
Well, this is loading. Just a reminder, if anyone wants to see anything specifically in SmartChart, if you have a question, please log it in the Q&A box, and we'll get to it right after Ray's done with her presentation.
So this one just shows the travel plot and the scatter plot. So you can make it however you like. The other thing that you can do is when you click here, if you call this user can enable or disable, when you saw on my other screen that there was a checkbox that I could either uncheck or check, that's what that means, and you need to enable it. And then if you ever want to change something for someone specific, you can also do that back in the report. And one other function is you can just send this PDF as an email. And so say I send it to John, and then he will get the email of the PDF. And I don't even have to try to save it as a file or anything like that. So that's pretty much everything. So Jill, did I miss anything?
That looks like you covered a lot. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it.
So does anyone have questions or some other report format they would like to see?
Yeah, please log them in or kind of send a note saying, please unmute me. We have some time left, and if you have any questions or need any any help with understanding something in the software or something going on in your own facility, feel free to reach out and shout out. It seems there's a lot of customization, and it really depends on what a customer or end user is looking for, how they view the data, how they export the data. Lots of functionality, I guess.
That's a lot of what makes it a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
Is that there's so many things. The other thing I didn't show in the database before is that you can set up this panel match, so you can actually get your fascia, how it measures to your quarter. And you can get this data also in Smart Chart.
Nice. We have a question from Ava. Do we have tolerances established for each color to input into this program?
So all that stuff is set up in standard management, and it's all done by Jill. So you have these NOSs. They're all set up for this Delta E FTA, Delta EP, and then depending on the color, these These S factors will change depending on where the color is in color space. So if we look at like this AJC, these are the tolerances, and if I look at this next one, see how my S factors change, so that changes my tolerances. So every color is set up specific for that color. It's not set up based off of someone hand inputting stuff. So everything's different depending on where you are in color space.
Nice.
Does that answer your question?
It's fine. Ava, I'm going to unmute you here. Are you there, Ava?
Yes.
Does that answer your
Very
question?
much. Yeah, that answered my question.
All right, perfect.
Great. Okay, what other questions are out there? Also, is there anything on this main screen, Ray, that you want to walk through? Or just describe how it all works together?
So basically, standard management is its own app, if you want to call it, and this is where we save all of the data for each standard and the tolerancing for each standard. And majority of you probably will never need to go in here. The only thing that I can say is you can also add wave scan tolerancing, depending on what OEM it is. You can put in whatever scales they like, and then you can put in your own tolerancing so that you have that as also a red, green, yellow. Normally, all you would do in standard management would be to import something that was sent to you by the OEM, and then you would get the color name and all the information around the color.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty simple to do that. And the organizer, I can show you where we do the panel match. It would be right here. So say I wanted my hood to match my fender, which wouldn't be a normal application, but in this case, just an example. And then it's always important to make sure that you change this curvature if you have something that's not flat or low curvature, but maybe a medium or a high. And we always try to go with the one, so if you think it potentially isn't low, but you should try medium and then go out and verify that medium works for you. I know that a lot of times on the fenders and the quarters, sometimes we have to go to high, but I would just try to do it as needed and not for every single checksum, just to make it easy. And then you can always pick how many times you want to measure your sample. So for BIC, I mean, Jill might be able to say something about this too, but for us, if you measure a lot of vehicles, it's okay to measure one sample per location because you're measuring so many vehicles that if you have one time that you maybe didn't have the instrument in the correct spot or something, that you can actually negate that better because you measure so much data. If you only measure like one vehicle per week, you should probably measure 3 times. Jill, do you have any queries on? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying too that we showed automotive examples here, but this can really work for any industry, right? Where you're matching, parts that fit next to another.
Of course. So if we go to BIC and we go to change schematic, I think we actually have. You can also add any schematic that you want. So here you see a bunch of Chrysler stuff. But also we have these generic ones, and then we have some bumper and some truck, and you could put refrigerators or stoves or furniture or anything that you wanted into the schematics, and then you could use it for your specific production setting.
Question here from Jerry. I see that you're presenting with version 7.3.0, and the latest version we're using is 7.1.1, in which we're having trouble exporting the database. Do you have a resolution for this issue?
Can you unmute him?
Yeah. Find you. Oh, sorry, he doesn't have a mic, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what location you're at, but what we've done is the 7.3.0 came out, I think, last week, and we updated 2 locations for Stellantis, and they're doing a test run to make sure that we didn't miss anything that they needed updated. But this version is currently on our website, and it can be downloaded. We were just trying to make sure that everything was okay before we rolled it out to all the locations.
Okay. Great. You're welcome, Jerry. Question from Therese. Sample size could be 1 per zone for any applicator and 3 per zone for harmony organizers?
Yes.
Yes.
You could do it either way. So you could have, if you did a lot of body data, you could do 1 per location, and then since you only do color harmony vehicles maybe once a week, then you could do 3, in the A locations for color harmony.
Okay, good. What other questions are out there? Or are there frequent questions you get, Ray? Things that you haven't covered here?
The only thing I would say is it's super important to make sure that you always measure the same way. So I always tell people to measure with those green LEDs at the top of the instrument in the same way that the sun would be shining on the vehicle. And you want to make sure everybody does it the exact same, because if they don't do it the same way, then you could have variation in your data that you're thinking potentially is a process problem. And it's not a process problem, it's a measurement problem. And it's really important that everything's consistent. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff with robotics now, and one of the main reasons that people are looking at robotics is because, one, they can measure more vehicles. Two, people don't have to be like, you know, in someone else's way in order to measure it. It'll go in its own cell and measure. But also the repeatability of that measurement. It's always measuring at exactly the same location with the orientation of the instrument exactly the same every time. So, I mean, consistency is huge, and you want stuff to be repeatable, and you want to know that the data you're getting is good data. And I think that's like a huge deal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions, please log them in the Q&A box. Like I mentioned before, we'll be sending out a link to the recording of this presentation, so you can review it later or share it with colleagues. That'll be coming tomorrow morning via email. We'll just give it another little bit here to see if anyone else has any questions. We hope this was helpful and you learned something new today. I'm just constantly overwhelmed by every time I see this stuff. It's just, it's a lot of stuff, but I think, you laid it out pretty easily, Ray, and, approaching it and just kind of coming in with what do you want to see?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to see? What do you want to report on?
The best thing for most of us is that, we would come in and we would help you set up the reporting that you like, because everybody's a little bit different. So, and like I said, there's a lot of options. So I can't go through every single scenario until I talk to somebody and they explain to me exactly what they're looking for. And then we can always figure out a way to get that data out in the manner that you like. And we've done a lot of customization with this software for different OEMs and different part suppliers. So we can always work on something if we find that it's something that isn't just one application for one facility. As long as it works for multiple facilities, we totally will work on the software to try to improve and get you guys the data that you need. So just be aware of that. And I know it looks a little complicated, but once you get the hang of it, I think it works very well.
And we, whether it's our technical applications team or regional sales or yourself, Ray, we can help customers set these up, correct?
Of course.
Okay.
And now that we have that saving feature, which I think is super awesome, we can also, set the reports up, and then you just click on, like I showed you, you just click on the report and then it automatically generates. So this was something that people ask us about for a long time, was how can they save the reports? And in the past, we couldn't do it. So this is a new feature. I think it was in 7.1.1, but I mean, for sure it's in 7.3. So that's another really important new feature of the software.
Yeah, and that'll save a lot of time keeping consistent over time.
Exactly.
Nice.
And then it can be multiple people using the same report, and they're not trying to figure out how to set it up every time.
Yeah.
So if it's like, different shifts or something like that, then you're always getting the same report. And all these reports are exportable, so if you needed to send them to someone who didn't have SmartChart, you can also do that. Or, like I said, you can email it as a PDF. I think it's better to email as a PDF because you get the graph when you export to Excel, you only get the data.
Oh, good. All right. You're welcome, Jerry. And thank you, the other comments there. I think we'll conclude if anyone, unless anyone else has any questions here. Just thank you for joining us today. Hope you learned something new. Always reach out to either Ray, your regional sales manager or inside sales manager, or you can simply hit reply to the link I send out tomorrow, and that'll come to marketing here, and we'll get it to the appropriate person. So with that, have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you on future Big Gardener web seminars. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.